In 1776, 13 British colonies along the eastern coast of North America made a decision that would forever alter the course of history. These colonies, though geographically distant from one another and culturally diverse, shared a common desire: freedom from the political and economic control of the British Empire. Tensions had been rising for decades, fueled by unfair taxation, restrictions on trade, and a growing sense that the colonists' rights as Englishmen were being systematically ignored. Incidents such as the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, and the infamous Boston Tea Party galvanized public opinion, turning frustration into organized resistance. Ordinary citizens, merchants, and intellectuals alike began to see themselves not merely as subjects of the crown but as participants in a larger, unprecedented experiment in self-governance. The movement toward independence gained momentum with the convening of the Continental Congress, a gathering of representatives from the colonies who sought a unified response to British policies. Among them were figures whose names would become legendary: George Washington, whose leadership in the emerging Continental Army would prove crucial; Thomas Jefferson, whose eloquent pen would articulate the colonies' aspirations; and Benjamin Franklin, whose diplomatic skills would secure international support at a critical moment. The Declaration of Independence, drafted primarily by Jefferson and adopted on July 4, 1776, was not merely a statement of rebellion, it was a profound assertion of principles. It declared that all men are created equal, endowed with unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This document became both a rallying point for the revolutionaries and a philosophical foundation for the new nation. The Revolutionary War that followed was far from easy. The colonies were unprepared in terms of resources and military experience, while Britain was the most powerful empire in the world. Yet the resolve of the American forces, combined with strategic alliances and an unwavering belief in their cause, allowed them to endure against formidable odds. Key battles, from Lexington and Concord to Saratoga and Yorktown, demonstrated both the challenges and the resilience of the fledgling nation. Throughout the conflict, ordinary citizens, farmers, artisans, and tradesmen played indispensable roles, providing supplies, intelligence, and support to sustain the revolutionary effort. Women and enslaved people also contributed in ways that were often overlooked, yet crucial to the survival and morale of the colonial forces. International support, particularly from France, proved decisive. The French provided not only financial assistance but also naval power and troops that helped tip the balance in favor of the colonies. Diplomacy became as critical as battlefield strategy, and leaders like Franklin skillfully negotiated treaties that secured recognition and aid. By 1783, after years of arduous struggle, the Treaty of Paris formally acknowledged the United States as an independent nation, ending British colonial rule and granting the new country legitimacy on the global stage. With independence secured, the challenges of nation building began. The Articles of Confederation initially provided a framework for governance, but it quickly became evident that a stronger federal system was necessary to maintain unity and manage collective interests. Debates over representation, power, and individual rights culminated in the drafting of the U.S. Constitution in 1787. This remarkable document established a government of checks and balances, separation of powers, and federal authority while protecting fundamental liberties. The Bill of Rights, ratified shortly afterward, enshrined essential freedoms such as speech, religion, and assembly, reflecting the lessons learned during the struggle against tyranny. The early years of the United States were marked by experimentation, growth, and reflection. Citizens and leaders alike navigated uncharted territory, seeking to balance authority with liberty, national interest with individual rights. From the establishment of the First Congress to the inauguration of George Washington as the nation's first president, these formative years set enduring precedents for democratic governance. The ideals expressed in the founding documents were ambitious and aspirational, aiming to create a society that could accommodate diversity, foster innovation, and protect freedoms. While the reality often fell short of these ideals, the foundation laid during this period enabled the United States to survive challenges and evolve into a resilient, enduring nation. This story of America's birth is one of courage, vision, and determination. It is a testament to the power of collective action, the strength of principles, and the willingness of people to risk everything for the promise of a better future. The Revolutionary period did not merely produce a new country, it created a bold experiment in self-rule that would inspire generations across the globe. The United States emerged not simply as a collection of states, but as an idea, a nation founded on the belief that freedom, justice, and equality are worth fighting for, a belief that would continue to shape its journey through history. As the United States entered the 19th century, it faced a period of rapid expansion, profound change, and deep internal conflict. The young nation, born out of revolution, now confronted the immense challenge of defining its identity and securing its place in the world. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 was a pivotal moment, doubling the country's size and opening vast territories for settlement, agriculture, and trade. Pioneers and settlers moved westward, braving difficult terrain, harsh climates, and conflicts with Native American nations whose lands were being encroached upon. The concept of manifest destiny, the belief that the United States was destined to expand across the continent, shaped political discourse and fueled economic ambitions, but it also created tensions over sovereignty, morality, and the treatment of indigenous peoples. Meanwhile, the nation grappled with the economic and social transformations brought about by the Industrial Revolution. Factories, railroads, and new forms of transportation began to reshape the American landscape, connecting distant regions and fostering urban growth. At the same time, the reliance on enslaved labor in the southern states deepened divisions within the country. The moral, economic, and political disputes over slavery became increasingly irreconcilable. Abolitionist movements gained momentum in the North, advocating for the immediate end of slavery, while southern states defended the institution as essential to their agricultural economy. These tensions, combined with disputes over states' rights and federal authority, set the stage for one of the most defining conflicts in American history. The Civil War, which erupted in 1861, tested the nation's commitment to unity and the principles of freedom on which it was founded. It was a war that pitted brother against brother and transformed the lives of millions of Americans. Leaders such as Abraham Lincoln emerged with a vision to preserve the Union and bring about the abolition of slavery. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 redefined the war, making the fight not only about the survival of the nation but also about human liberty. The conflict was brutal and costly, with immense casualties and widespread destruction. Yet, the eventual victory of the Union forces in 1865 reaffirmed the country's ability to endure, adapt, and overcome internal division. The post-war Reconstruction era sought to rebuild the South, integrate formerly enslaved people into society, and redefine citizenship and civil rights, though these efforts faced significant resistance and left a legacy of ongoing struggle. As the century progressed, the United States emerged as an increasingly industrialized and modern nation. Immigrants arrived in large numbers from Europe and beyond, seeking opportunity and contributing to the country's economic and cultural development. Cities expanded, transportation networks grew, and technological innovations transformed daily life. The nation confronted new challenges, including labor disputes, social inequality, and the need for political reform. Progressive movements arose, advocating for education, workers' rights, and government accountability. These efforts reflected the continuing evolution of a society attempting to balance rapid growth with justice, equity, and social cohesion. Internationally, the United States began to assert itself on the global stage. The Spanish-American War of 1898 marked a turning point, resulting in the acquisition of territories such as Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines and signaling the country's emergence as a global power. At home, debates over imperialism, national identity, and the role of government highlighted the complexities of expansion and influence. Through diplomacy, commerce, and occasionally military engagement, the nation established relationships that would shape the international order for decades to come. Throughout this era, the ideals of freedom, democracy, and equality continued to guide the nation, even amid profound challenges. Social reformers, intellectuals, and ordinary citizens pushed the country to live up to its founding principles, confronting injustice and advocating for progress. Education, political participation, and civil engagement became central to shaping a society capable of addressing both domestic and international challenges. The tension between aspiration and reality, between the promise of liberty and the persistence of inequality, remained a defining feature of the United States as it moved toward the 20th century. The 19th century, with its wars, social movements, technological innovations, and territorial expansion, was a period that forged the character of the nation. The United States, having survived its internal divisions and embraced the opportunities of growth and change, emerged stronger and more resilient. Its history during this era reflects the complexity of building a nation that seeks to balance freedom with responsibility, diversity with unity, and tradition with progress. The lessons of expansion, conflict, and reform would set the stage for America's transformation into a global power, shaping the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead in the modern era. As the United States entered the 20th century, it began to assert itself as a global power while continuing to navigate profound social, political, and technological transformations at home. The nation's involvement in World War I marked its first major engagement in international affairs on a large scale, signaling a shift from a relatively isolated country to a central player on the world stage. American soldiers fought alongside allies in Europe, and the nation's economic and industrial capabilities were mobilized to support the war effort. The post-war period, though marked by prosperity for some, also revealed deep social divisions, economic instability, and political challenges. The 1920s brought innovation, cultural flourishing, and the rise of mass media, but these years were also a prelude to economic collapse, culminating in the Great Depression of the 1930s. Millions faced unemployment, poverty, and uncertainty, prompting government intervention under Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs. These reforms reshaped the relationship between citizens and the federal government, establishing social safety nets and public infrastructure projects that helped stabilize the nation. World War II further cemented the United States' role as a global leader. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the country fully mobilized for war, contributing decisive military, industrial, and technological support to the Allied forces. The conflict reshaped global power structures, and the United States emerged not only victorious but as a principal architect of the post-war world order. International institutions, economic alliances, and diplomatic agreements reflected the nation's growing influence. The wartime experience also accelerated social change at home. As women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, African Americans migrated to urban centers, and calls for civil rights began to gain momentum. The decades following World War II were marked by both rapid technological advancement and profound social movements. The Cold War with the Soviet Union defined foreign policy for much of the latter half of the 20th century, influencing military strategy, scientific research, and global diplomacy. The space race, culminating in the Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969, symbolized the nation's innovation and ambition, demonstrating its ability to achieve what once seemed impossible. Meanwhile, domestic life was transformed through economic growth, suburban expansion, and the rise of mass media, which shaped culture, communication, and public perception. Social and political movements also reshaped the fabric of American society. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s challenged racial segregation, discrimination, and inequality, resulting in landmark legislation such as the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. Activists, leaders, and ordinary citizens worked tirelessly to demand justice and equality, often facing resistance and violence but never abandoning their commitment to change. Women's rights movements, environmental advocacy, and labor reforms further expanded the conversation about equality, opportunity, and responsibility in a modern democracy. These movements reflected a nation continuously striving to live up to the ideals enshrined in its founding documents, demonstrating that progress often requires persistence, courage, and collective effort. The late 20th and early 21st centuries brought further complexity and challenge. Globalization, technological innovation, and cultural exchange redefined the economy, communication, and daily life. The United States faced conflicts abroad, including wars in the Middle East, while simultaneously addressing domestic challenges such as economic inequality, political polarization, and social justice issues. Despite these challenges, the nation continued to demonstrate resilience, creativity, and adaptability. The digital revolution, advances in medicine, and achievements in science and technology reinforced America's role as a global leader while shaping new opportunities for education, innovation, and social engagement. Throughout its modern history, the United States has remained a nation defined by contradictions and possibilities. It is a country of immense diversity, both culturally and geographically, continually balancing freedom with responsibility, innovation with tradition, and individual rights with collective needs. Its influence extends globally, shaping culture, politics, economics, and technology. While its domestic journey reflects ongoing efforts to address inequality, foster inclusion, and uphold the principles of democracy. From the battlefields of world wars to the laboratories of scientific discovery, from the streets of civil rights protests to the halls of government, the story of modern America is one of ambition, struggle, and transformation. The narrative of the United States, from its founding to the present day, is a testament to resilience, innovation, and the pursuit of ideals. The country has endured internal divisions, external threats, and the constant pressure of change, yet it has also achieved remarkable progress in governance, civil rights, and global influence. The United States' history is not static. It is a living story of a nation continuously striving to fulfill its promise, expand opportunity, and shape the future. Its journey illustrates the enduring power of vision, courage, and collective effort, reflecting a nation that, despite its challenges, remains committed to the pursuit of freedom, justice, and the possibility of a better tomorrow.